So let's take just a couple of minutes and talk about reliable sources of information, especially with regard to doing research. Thanks to the magic of the internet, you have an infinite amount of information available at your fingertips. But knowing what is quality information and what isn't is vitally important, because what you read will influence the opinions that you form. And of course, for purposes of doing research for school, it will influence the quality of the work you submit. So I found this graphic, and I think it's really well done. So as we look at this, bear in mind that there's an x-axis and a y-axis. All right, so let's take a look at how to read this. Okay, so as we look from left to right, well, let's start in the center. The center is our least biased area, okay? And you can sort of see that in the top center, our least biased area, meaning without a conservative or liberal bias. And that's pretty hard to find, okay? A lot of news sources have a point of view. Does that mean that you shouldn't pay attention to them? Not necessarily, as long as you keep in mind that that point of view exists. So here in the center, we have news sources like NPR, The Economist, BBC News, USA Today. And as we head to the left and to the right, we find that these sources become increasingly biased. When you reach the extremes, those are the sources that are so biased as to be perhaps no longer based on fact. To the left, sources like Occupy Democrats, and to the right, InfoWars. This is where sources take sort of the germ of a fact and run with it. Maybe you have a friend like this. They take a tiny bit of information and then spin it into something that it was never meant to be. Okay? For purposes of research, you should be avoiding sources that are at the far left or at the far right. You may agree with these sources. They may reinforce your worldview, but it doesn't make them good sources for research. Now, you may notice something about the sources in the center. CBS, Time, Atlantic, Bloomberg. These are sources that aren't solely internet-based. You know, I can watch the CBS Evening News. I can read Time magazine. The Atlantic is a magazine. But these sources that you find over on the fringes, like Occupy Democrats, Breitbart, they are primarily internet-based. And why does that matter? Well, it matters because news agencies that are also in television and also in print are more likely to have editors, people who are doing fact-checking, whereas internet sources are run a bit more like blogs. They're more likely to produce news very quickly with less attention to fact-checking and making sure that the information is true and correct before putting it online. So we talked a little bit about the x-axis, this left to right. I also want you to notice that we have a y-axis here. The stuff down at the bottom, where we have this red box, these are your least factual sources, okay? They've put the least effort into ensuring that the information that they are making available is factual. Now, the sources up at the top are the ones that are the most factual. Please note that a source can have a bias and still be factual. For example, The New Yorker is sort of to the top left. That is a magazine that has a very clear left bias, a liberal point of view, but it is very factual. The Weekly Standard, that is a newspaper that has a very conservative point of view, but it is factual, okay? That is certainly preferable to the bottom left and the bottom right. This is where you're getting into sources that tend not to be factual and be biased. So those bottom left, bottom right corners, those are the ones that we really have to avoid. Let's look at a couple of examples. How bad can they be, Mrs. Pence? Let's start with, I pulled up a story on Occupy Democrats this morning, and it makes me cringe. Okay, I just pulled this up this morning. Trump just got busted cutting clean water rules to help his golf courses. So the first thing that I'm going to notice here is an unreliable source, a low quality source will always pull, so Occupy Democrats is obviously a left-leaning source. So for President Trump, they're going to find an unflattering photo. That's pretty unprofessional, okay? So note the unflattering picture. Let's look at the inflammatory language. Just got busted, okay? He's cutting clean water rules to help his golf courses. Now, he may have cut clean water rules. That is something that can be independently verified. Whether his intent was to help his golf courses or not, that is a difficult thing to prove. That is an allegation, okay? So this is a clickbait story. You know, you see the headline and you click on it. President Trump just got caught using the EPA to make a buck at his golf courses. Okay, very casual language, inflammatory language. So this is an example of a low quality source. We don't know if that is why this clean water rule was cut or not, but that's an accusation that he did it for his own profit. Now let's look at a right-leaning source, Breitbart. Canada sends soldiers to handle illegals flooding her southern border. Again, we have inflammatory language, flooding. Illegals are flooding her southern border. Incidentally, her southern border would be, of course, the border with the United States. I look at the picture. I don't know if that really depicts illegals flooding her southern border. Let's see. The Associated Press reported that the Canadian government is sending about 100 soldiers to assist police and border guards at the remote road on the Quebec-New York border. Okay, so if I read this and I wanted to know if it was true, I would actually go to the Associated Press report, see what the Associated Press has to say. Because what these sources do is they take one fact and then they sort of blow it out of proportion or take it in a different direction. And a lot of the reasons why they do that is because they have advertising content and they charge for their advertising content based on the number of clicks on their sites. So now let's look at a balanced site like NPR, which is actually one of my favorites. All right, I'll start up at the top. 5 big unanswered questions about the Russia investigations. No unflattering pictures here. No inflammatory language. Very neutral. Congress is gone. The president is on holiday. Justice Department Special Counsel Robert Mueller, however, is forging ahead. What comes next? Okay, that's pretty neutral. There was one article I wanted to look at a little bit closer with you to show you when you click on an article what to find in a high-quality article. And I thought that this particular one was interesting because this is local to Palm Beach County, even though this is a national source. Beach Town tries to reverse runaway growth of sober homes. And this is actually a real issue in Palm Beach County, is the regulation of these addiction recovery residences called sober homes. That a lot of them were apparently committing this sort of insurance fraud while not really helping the people with addiction problems who are staying there. And this particular one is in Delray Beach. So what makes this a good article? Again, I don't see inflammatory language, unflattering pictures. But what I like about this article is it's going to show all sides of the issue, and actually talk to the people involved. So resident Michelle Siegel is consulted. She lives in Delray Beach. She walks by these sober homes a lot. The law is explained. Dave Ehrenberg, who's the state attorney for Palm Beach County, is consulted. We get his perspective on what the problem is. Okay. The journalist consults emergency medical services, how many calls there are, what those calls cost, what the problem is from EMS's point of view. Consulting people who run reputable sober homes. Consulting with the town's mayor, getting the mayor's perspective. That's quality journalism, okay? And that's what you want to look for. Yes, it may take a few minutes longer. Don't just go with the first article that comes up in a search. It may not be the best one, and the quality of your sources does reflect on you. Kind of like, it's sort of the academic way of the quality of the friends you keep, right? When you hang out with quality people, people think you're a quality person. And when you do quality research, people know that you have quality research, that the thoughts that you're forming are of good quality. Okay, and to find this good chart, I did a search for reliable sources, and I found all kinds of good stuff. So I'll put this up for another moment. You can take a look at it and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you so much.